worldwide organizations such as UNESCO and the Kaiser Family Foundation, that a large number of adults around the world are going through very hard times. Unemployment rate is at an all-time high. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation research, about 45% of adults have stated that they feel a lot of stress and worry about their jobs, losing their jobs, about the negative impact of the COVID situation has on their mental health. Also, students are greatly affected. The world's student population, about 1.20 million learners have been out of school around the world across 150 countries. The global growth has also seen a big slump, a big downturn. Globally, GDP has shrunk by 4.9% in 2020. And according to the World Economic Forum, GDP growth in 2021 is projected to drop by 6.5 percentage points when compared to the pre-COVID-19 projections of January 2020. We do give further evidence in our chapter discussing different parts of the world that have been affected, one of them being Africa. About 80% of their GDP growth is dependent on remittances that come from developed countries, and that has already been decreased significantly, which means that developing countries which depend on financial help from developed countries are also at risk and very vulnerable at this time. So we can see this is some financial and some social evidence we have here to understand the impact of COVID-19 around the world on employees, on businesses and governments as well. What is the role of business in this situation? I think, and our research team thinks that business has to rethink, to reconsider their role and to take a leadership role in initiating and helping recovery and rebuilding of social and economic infrastructure during the pandemic and afterwards. So it's really about rethinking of how this volatile external operating environment that is ingrained with uncertainty and unpredictability can actually be an opportunity for companies to become stewards of social and economic sustainability and growth. So this is a pivotal moment for businesses to rethink their role and their responsibilities towards their own employees, their stakeholders, as well as communities and society in general. We will see what competencies are important for businesses to survive and to also continue to develop and thrive in the post-COVID-19 era. Previous certainties and preconceptions and established beliefs are no longer effective and viable ways of solving business problems and developing business strategy. So we will see that we develop in our book chapter the concept of a different way of strategic thinking for businesses that does not rely on traditional long-term linear strategic decision making. And there are some really important competencies in that context of a changing how companies develop business strategy. The first thing that we want to talk about is the concept of stakeholder capitalism. And this is something that, as a business model, is gaining more and more traction in the business world. Indicative of this is that the World Economic Forum that in 2020 in Davos, was the first time that it reconsidered its Davos Manifesto for the first time since 1973. And revisiting the Davos Manifesto for the World Economic Forum provided an opportunity to re-emphasize and delineate the stakeholder principles of businesses, and to reinforce the role of business as stewards of the environment, of human rights, and of societal good and well-being. Those principles have been key principles for decision-making, and they have been further developed in this renewed manifesto by the World Economic Forum, giving some directions and guidelines to business owners and managers that want to make a shift from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. And that new concept relies on open, interactive, two-way communication on a daily basis with key informants of the business that lie around the boundaries of the business: suppliers, agents, customers, sector experts, government agencies, and competitors. Interaction with those key informants is it's vital for business survival and growth, but also for promoting the well-being and the interests of all those different stakeholder groups. Stakeholder capitalism is a model that does not pit one group against the other, or does not favor the interests of one group against the other, but it stipulates that companies should make decisions taking into account the needs and interests of all those different stakeholder groups, and harmonizing their interests and needs into business strategy and business decision making. That means looking at stakeholder interests and needs on board meetings, on C-suite meetings, integrate them into the highest level of decision making in business. The new manifesto was distributed to 140 members of the World Economic Forum, and also another 450 business owners who participate in the COVID-19 platform of the World Economic Forum. The ambition is to provide theoretical and practical guidelines to businesses interested in making the transition towards a more stakeholder management business model. So there is a renewal interest in stakeholder management and ethical practice. And along with those lines, there is a renewed importance in practicing entrepreneurial spirit and having an entrepreneurial spirit and developing entrepreneurial competencies during this very challenging time. One of the main competencies in our framework of practicing an entrepreneurial orientation is looking at opportunistic exploitation of external environmental opportunities, looking at the external environment and looking at scanning the environment for new ways of doing work, for new product offerings, and for new service ideas, moving away from a long-term strategic thinking at looking at the external environment and the opportunities that it presents, so that the companies can very quickly respond to environmental challenges and opportunities and exploit and disrupting the market and exploit the opportunities with new disruptive ideas. So unlike the traditional business orientation that requires a linear strategic thinking, focusing from segmentation to targeting and then positioning strategically of the brand or the product it focuses on, now the opportunity is to look at what customers want, what customers need to solve daily problems, and the company should be there listening to their customers on a daily basis, and offering products and services that would really solve customer problems and add value to a customer experience. So real solution to customer needs is what will maximize business value.
Antonia, 3 minutes to go.
Thank you. So we have here some examples of how companies, big ones, have responded to the challenges of COVID-19 crisis. Unilever and Procter & Gamble, for example, have emphasized the protection of products, sanitization and hygiene products that customers really need. Lego and Johnson & Johnson have invested in charitable programs, especially for children who are highly vulnerable during this time. Summing up, competencies should rely more on finding those opportunities and to be the first ones to disrupt the market with new and innovative ideas, which requires entrepreneurs and business owners to try out ideas, find the market for those, and see whether those ideas can then be scaled up to a larger market segment. But trying through trial and error and in daily communication with key informants of the business and mainly their core customer base, businesses can quickly adapt to these changing circumstances and really develop resilience and innovative thinking, which are very important competencies in conducting business successfully during the COVID-19 era and beyond. That requires all companies and especially business owners to be open to learning opportunities, to change their mindset and how they think about business and about their company, and being open to discussing ideas with employees, with suppliers, with customers, looking at the news to see how the latest events, the latest sociopolitical developments can affect their business and find ways to respond accordingly is key to entrepreneurial development in the COVID-19 era and beyond. Companies do not operate in a vacuum. They are dependent on external actors and work with them for prosperity and growth. And this is very important for companies to realize so they can grow their social network with numerous different stakeholders and to kind of work together to develop coping strategies and to also accelerate accelerate growth and maximize whatever opportunities there are in their environment. Thinking out of the box is really important way for approaching business activity, either on strategic or operational level, which can drive costs down, drive innovation, and provide customers with better products and service offerings that customers will really appreciate.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think, yes, so this is our references and bibliography. This was our presentation of our book chapter.
Great.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't know if there are any questions. I will be very happy to answer.
I was looking at the chat, but I can't see any questions just yet.
No question.
Yeah. Maybe it's you know, in terms of trying to think out of the box, as you were saying, for finding opportunities as a business, being flexible and being agile. It's important more than ever, isn't it, in this pandemic? So I was just wondering, how can big organizations embrace that? I mean, you mentioned Unilever and Procter & Gamble. And the corporates, obviously, the big organizations. So sometimes there's a mismatch between the, you know, the rigidities, basically large organizations finding very hard to change versus the smaller enterprises, which are a bit more nimble. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that contrast and how you think this can actually help both large and small organizations.
Yes, this is a very good point. I think our research has shown that small businesses, as you said, are more flexible. They can be more flexible. They can be more resilient to change because of their small size and their ability to be in personal contact with their customer base. So I think these are competitive advantages that small companies should take to take advantage of further and to exploit for their own interest. So there are some distinctive characteristics of small businesses that can help them navigate those challenges during COVID-19 era. Large organizations should scan the environment and just try to make swift changes. So, for example, when we mentioned Unilever and Procter & Gamble, they very quickly emphasized production lines of sanitizers, of hygienic products instead of cosmetics or detergents, for example. And that showed that being open to environmental information from the external environment and using that to make their own strategic decisions about developing products, about offering product lines, about offering different selling points of sale. For example, investing in e-commerce as well for large companies are some of the ways, some of the responses that can prepare them better and to compete in the COVID-19 era. Another example we mentioned in the book chapter is Airbnb, and we know that tourism and hospitality have been hit the hardest. So they were open to changing their business model, their operating model, to offer virtual experiences, lifestyle virtual experiences on their platform, instead in a time when they couldn't take any bookings because of lockdown restrictions. So being just open to environmental signals, environmental information, and making quick adjustments to meet customer needs in the best possible way, I think would be my answer to this question.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you
so
very much,
Antonia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, I just wonder if the presenter of the second paper.
Yeah, hi. This is Nitin.
Nitin, yes.
Yeah. Shall I start?
Dr. Nitin, can you please close the presentation, please? Dr. Antonia? Yeah, I think. Dr. Antonia? think she has got, yeah. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Dr. Nitin, Dr. Louisa, can we ask Dr. Nitin to start? Doctor, you are muted. Doctor, you are muted.
Dr. Louisa, we can't hear you.
Dr. Louisa, you are muted.
Thank you very much. Yeah, welcome to the second paper. So reimagining and redesigning a post-COVID sporting event, mapping global sporting experiences. And I believe we got Nitin Carlos with us to present.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Wish you everyone a very much happy Women's Day. So today, this chapter basically we started long back, even before getting the call for paper of this auspicious book. I will thank you, the university, for a wonderful chance so that we can put forward our idea about how we can regain or reimagine the sporting events. And we're trying to basically, we studied the IPL, Indian Premier League, one of the world's biggest cricket professional league. So how they have been made possible to happen. And basically me and Malvika, we both are teaching films and media at Amity University, India, and I myself, Bennett University from India. We were trying to understand what is the role of media and media management to help to make sports happen. As I told, to make sports happen, most of the sports as we see here is basically from as a media event. So we watch through TV, we get updates on mobile, or we get like experience of the sports over television or any media platform. But when pandemic came, what happened? It stopped all sports from the locals, even the school level. I have a cousin who was waiting for to enter in under 16 football team for a long time. He was waiting for cut time, but he lost a chance because the last year that was he was at age of 16, but he crossed the age, so he could not make out the team. A lot of opportunities missed from the school level, from the regional level, from national and international level. All sports, including the Tokyo Olympics, everything was closed. So it was a sudden closure. Many matches were progressing. Some matches were started and it was in between. But they had to stop it. Even without concluding, they had to stop it without any other information. As we know that we must already discussed about COVID-19 much, and I'm not going too much deep into that. We also know that full world was closed. It's not only affected the sports, it also is affected the whole world, which we are regaining, or which we are trying to regain our spaces as a human society or human community. We are trying to fight back and we are trying to get it back. As we know that the pandemic is nothing new to anyone. Like now we are traveling everywhere. People are started the mobilization very well. And after vaccination, things are getting normal. So even if things are getting normal, the pandemic is still there. The fear is still there. So whenever we are going to play, people who are playing or people are into sports, or if we are involving in a mass gathering, the fear of catching virus or the fear of the COVID-19 is still there. It won't go anywhere. We have to live with that. So this paper, this chapter is basically trying to figure out the available literature, like what are the various models of various countries which they try to regain the sporting events to make it happen. Also, what was the response from the audience? And our portion, we are trying to add how was the IPL, the recently concluded IPL they conducted, and how the media and media management supported, and how can we understand a sustainable model so that in the future we can have a sustained events. So we know that sports having came back with all protection, with following the WHO protocol. The players started playing, but who will watch it? So as per the latest all sports revenue by different federations, it is understood that the revenue generated from the stadium, that means it is either by the audience ticket or by the special VIP tickets or by the in-stadium branding, is equal as the broadcasters. So for example, not all part of the stadium is covered by broadcasters. Example, if you're taking about football is having a lot of shots which is very close up of the face of a person. the long shots are very, very less. So the branding is limited. If there is no one to see or no one to watch in a stadium, then that's a problem. That's a issue for the purpose of sponsorship. So our argument is that media is something which makes everything happen, because the camera became the eyes of the audience, and the microphone becomes the ear of the audience, and the visual graphics, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, everything is playing together so that the in-live experience can be transferred to our home screens. So basically, as I told that this paper is was trying to see from a media management point of view. So basically, media management is nothing but the managing the media content, how it is made and how it is distributed by the managers within the media houses. Like for example, if you're conducting an event, the event will have a media manager. His or her responsibility will be to create a content, to manage the content, and also to distribute the content with other outlets. Same way, every outlet will have their own media managers. That's a network of management which creates the media management spectrum. Also, they have to highly involved in developing and implementing the targeted content for various media platforms. This stage of social media, if somebody is making a video or making a content for television, he or she has to reproduce same thing for social media. So people are not waiting for TV content; they want everything on mobile. So that kind of a fast procedure also needed for media managers these days. And they have to implement and manage media campaigns, which are very important to attract the traction. Also, the public relations and image, that the brand image and communication plan also need to be delivered. Nothing more to say. The financial and logistics support, that's also the part of media management. Basically, media management is to make things happen. If you see a television program, or if you see any content in media, we can see only the actors, or we can see only the directors' names in front of the screen. So there's a huge lot of intellectual brain, or you can tell that human capital involved in media management or media managers. They are the people who are actually making the things happen. If somebody tells that this event is well managed, so it's actually credit goes to the management team who are not visible on the screen, or their names are not known to everyone, but they are the brain which are connecting everything from the behind. So I think I should say something on how the sports and society are connected. So we know that sports are very much important in terms of social, also the medical and mental health values. So when we were reviewing the literature, we saw a lot of paper came like mental issues of athletes, or mental issues like trauma gone through by a lot of sports persons because of the COVID-19. Like they could not move out for walking, or they could not do their regular exercise, especially the players who are involved in field games like football or cricket, etc. They have to step out of their home. Their body is not trained for just practicing within the four walls. So those papers were highly rated. And also for the childhood, the children who are locked up in the home, they also suffer a lot because of not able to play or not able to develop play within the peer group. Also, many nations use sports as the soft power. We know that how the sport is popular in many like West Asian countries or the European countries like football, etc. And they use the sports as the major tool of sports, soft power, to promote their country or promote their goodwill. So the positive attitudes such as competition, coexistence, cooperation, we can impart those values through the sports. And also it gives us good financial stability for host nation and organizers. We know that how much time or how much effort is taken by each nation to get a bid for a undertaking FIFA World Cup or Olympics, because it's not only about showing their organization skill, but also the expected the financial revenue. So when the sports stopped by COVID-19, the first thing what affected was the financial revenue. That financial revenue has been stopped. So as we know that traveling was banned, so mass gathering was banned. So many sports events were postponed or delayed or even cancelled. So huge lot of money happened, and it also affected the sponsors and stakeholders. It also affected some destinations which were based on sports or which were based on sports tourism. Like in Kerala, we have boat race. Like in Himachal, we have the skydiving. So same way in every country, they will be having a lot of their own destination-based sports, like desert-based sports or the diving-based sports. Every destination which used to have the seasonal tourism, which also got affected. That's a bigger picture to understand. So these are the some like Tokyo Olympics or Wimbledon or Vivo. These were the some events which were directly affected, like cricket 2020, which was actually conducted in Australia. So earlier it was a bipolar world. Like we can tell that that's a line between the first world and the rest of the world. If something major happened, the first world used to survive. They had their own method. They had their own like sustained models. But COVID-19 destroyed everything. Like the whole world affected equally. So even major events, multinational events have been cancelled. So how this, from the various literature, what we understood is that these are some techniques which are used by many other sporting events. Like they started sports event with no audience allowed. Like all sports events became only media events. So media events we can define as any event which has importance only because the media is covering it. If there is no media coverage, then there is no value for that particular event. So they also compromised on revenue and budget. There were a lot of reviews which we read and reviewed in the chapter that the players, the organizers, and the match officials, they agreed to play the match with lesser amount of money, and also the money pumped in was regulated so that the output can be maximized. So we know that various sports managers and media managers worked in various models for organizing sport events. So these literature already shared in our chapter, so we can read from that. So this was our one of the case study which we took highlightly. So the IPL, the Indian Premier League, is one of the prestigious sports league of India, which revolves around a lot of money. So earlier, it was actually conducted in India during the May, April, March, but due to the COVID-19, it was cancelled. But later in September, it was transferred to UAE. The UAE became a host of Indian Premier League. That is one. Okay. One more slide, right?
Yeah, you can carry on and wrap up.
Okay, fine. So the broadcasting partner, they decided to create a virtual presence experience audience. So basically, they put up the huge artificial intelligence camera, and they created some sound of people clapping, cheering. So whoever's watching on the television, they understood that they're also involved in the process of the game. So these are some measures which are taken, which also we noted, like they use bio bubbles for players. Each players and match official, they traveled in separately so that they will play together, but they will not meet anyone else or they will not mingle with others. So WHO's protocol and local authority protocols followed very well. As I told, that use of AR and AI, they use very much so that the live was given. And media events are very much trailer made. Audience could see without reality. So basically the virtual screens, that's one of the important thing. There were display that people who were sitting at home, they could telecast themselves, and that's also a kind of a like a sponsorship opportunity. So my point, from the point of media management and a sports event, these are the major players which we should always think, and that's our last point. Like mainly the audience, the players themselves, organizers, sponsors, stakeholders, media managers. That should, for a sustainable output of any event, we should have a very good mixture of this team to make any program as a conduction and broadcasting. So that's why we can identify IPL 2020 was a location of very much sustainable economically, and also point of view of sporting event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a
Thank you.
good presentation. Thank you so much. Just wondering, is there any questions that the audience have?
On chat box. Dr. Nitin, can I ask you a question, Dr. Nitin?
Please.
Yeah, of course, yes, the sports activities completely got banned and nobody's coming forward to play. But how are we going to cope up the stress that players are undergoing, because they are not playing and they don't meet people, they don't have any network, and they are completely, physically and mentally they're becoming, completely they are devastated. Well, when you're asking them to come and play, suddenly one fine morning you ask them to play. Well, they may not be ready that much to show their potential, as they used to have before. But how these sporting organizations are equipping themselves to provide that much of psychological, support to those people? Any idea on that? Any thought about it?
So I'm not talking from the psychology point of view, but I'm talking from the media point of view.
Yeah.
So we can take social media. If you see a social media activity during those periods, all social media platform of all major teams, all major athletes, they were active. Like whenever they're doing some exercise inside home, they used to telecast it. So psychologically, what happened? If they understood that people are supporting them, people are loving them, that will make them active. They are on the field, even though virtually they are living, but that will give a sense of a co-creating space, and that is more important.
Yes.
And in the chapter, we have surely discussed some of the literature which you mentioned. We have mentioned how the different psychological consultancy services have been helping individual team and individual players to overcome the burden of the trauma.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We move on to the third paper, and that's presenter is here. So thank you very much. Framework for EHRM implementation and employee satisfaction in Sultanate of Oman. And I believe we got a presenter here. So welcome. And is it Amani Balushi?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Louisa. Welcome everyone to our research is on framework of EHRM implementation and employee satisfaction in the Sultanate of Oman. Main authors are Dr. Mohammed Al-Hazazi, Dr. Subramanian Muthraman, Dr. Nasser Yahyai, and myself from AOUOM University Oman branch. The purpose of our paper is to analyze employee satisfaction on EHRM system in relation to different factors, getting to the conclusion on enhanced performance and enhanced organizational system. Actually, this paper is part of funded research by the Research Council here in Oman. So the influence, our main research is on influence of human resource on digital transformation in the cognitive technology era in the Sultanate of Oman. So this actually gives us, the result of this paper leads us to the laying the foundation for our main funded research. The objective of our study is to understand the awareness of EHRM implementation in the organization, and also to analyze employee satisfaction on EHRM system implementation in relation to different factors that I will explain in the conceptual model, and also to examine to which extent EHRM system enhances performance in the organization. So the conceptual model that we developed for our study is we're discovering the impact of EHRM system implementation, examining different factors like e-selection, training, electronic appraisal, electronic communication, on the enhanced employee performance, and finally discovering and testing employee satisfaction. The methodology that we used for our research, we used structured questionnaire design, and we collected data from various fields, from various industry on EHRM practices and employee satisfaction and enhanced employee performance. So we're examining and we're testing the conceptual model that we developed earlier. In the pilot study, we distributed few questionnaires and we used convex alpha value to measure the reliability of the questions. We had 48 questions in our research, and we tested the Cronbach's alpha value, and it was found to be 0.87%, which can be called as a reliable condition according to her research, or according to his definition of reliability test. Then we used a convenience sampling method, and we had 48 questions, as I stated before, and we got results from 154 samples from various sectors. We had different gender, different age group, different working experience. Most of them are between 5 up to 10 years of working experience, and we had also 7 different sectors that we tested the implementation of EHRM on, such as oil and gas. We had in service sector, in health, and telecommunication sector as well. So we had from a different sector to get a more reliable and a more solid result for our study. So to measure and to analyze the weighted average results, so when we asked people about and employees about their opinion on the awareness of EHRM, we found that most of them are aware about the implementation of EHRM systems in their organization, whether it's in HR, whether it's in finance or in marketing or in management in general, but employees are confident and they are aware of such system being implemented. Also, when we asked employees about their opinion on enhancing employee satisfaction towards EHRM practices, so does EHRM practices enhances and boosts your performance in the organization, we found that most and majority of employees feel satisfied, feel more confident that the use of EHRM tools that are implemented are more cost effective than the traditional method. And they're also more confident and they rely on better than the traditional and the manual practices. Also, when we asked about the impact of the HRM system, such as on training, on performance appraisal, on enhancing the organizational performance, enhancing their performance, we found that majority of them think and they stated that the aim is to increase the organizational efficiency and to speed up activities and processes. So the use of electronic human resource management system speed things up within the organizational system. Then we used a multiple regression analysis to discover the correlation between the two different variables, between the dependent and the independent variable, which is the electronic human resource management system, and the independent variables such as the practices of selection, training, appraisals, communication, electronic activities as well. We found that it's a clear evidence that the impact of electronic HRM practices and employee job satisfaction are positively correlated. And when we measured between, as I mentioned, the different variables such as the recruitment, the selection, we found that that the model, the conceptual model that we designed suggests that the dependent variable plays a significant role on enhancing employees' performance, enhancing employee satisfaction and trust in the organization. So to conclude our study, organizations who are using and implementing electronic HRM system feel more confident. Also, employees within the organizational system feel more confident, feel more comfortable while working within an organization that uses such electronic processes and activity. And we found many benefits like enhanced employee turnover, enhanced employee employees' efficiency, service delivery within the organizational system, improved standardization and trust and loyalty within the organization, and finally, an organizational image. And also managers will feel more empowered if they use electronic system and their employees are using electronic HRM systems as well. So the result from our study is giving us a foundation to discover more the influence of implementing HRM digital transformation on a more larger and wider scale in the Sultanate, because we discovered that actually this study is a very humble and modest evaluation of the implementation of the HRM system on employees' performance and satisfaction, but we hope to implement it on a national scale. We will get more concrete and a more reliable result to draw and to design a more broader framework where companies and organizations from different sectors can implement to move into the digital transformation within their organizational system. So thank you very much. I think within the time frame, if you have any
thank you so much.
Questions?
Yeah, so thank you so much. That was very interesting presentation. As you said, you did very well with the time, so that's great. Yeah, so I had a question about the scale. You talked about EHRM tools being used in Oman. So I just wonder what proportion of the whole population do you think you had this sample? Because yeah, I just wonder whether it is a widespread practice or not in terms of using EHRM tools. So is it very common to use EHRM tools in Oman, or is it just a particular?
Actually, it's not. We're still very modest in our use in technology, especially in HRM system, especially if you're looking at different sectors. So I can say, for example, in telecommunication, in oil and gas, where we have privatized organization, where we have international corporate. Yes, we have a more wider use of HRM tools and systems. But when you compare it, for example, to service sector, when you compare it to public sector as well, there's still a huge gap in transforming into the digital technology and the use of electronic HRM systems.
Yeah, that's good. Just looking at the chat. If anybody else would like to ask a question, you're welcome to put it there. But I have also had a thought in terms of the so everything seems to be great in your research. So everything seems to be positive. So I was just wondering, do you have any surprises coming out of the research, like anything that you didn't expect to find, and after your survey you found something surprising or unusual that you were not predicting before you did the research? So anything new that you have found in your research?
I didn't hear you.
Yeah. We cannot see you anymore. I think your camera is turned off.
Amani?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was asking you whether there was any surprises or anything unusual that you found after doing your survey that you didn't predict, obviously from your pilot. Anything that you were not expecting to find?
Yes, actually, I don't know about my colleagues, but what was interesting to me is that when we're getting the result on enhanced performance, on the implementation, how they enhances performance, in my mind, I was thinking that majority of the results would say that yes, using this will enhance our productivity. It will enhance us, for example, or we need more knowledge, we need more training, because if you read the full paper, we also did on each one of the HRM functions, such as training, such as e-communication. I found that most of them will say that, yes, we need, for example, training in such fields, or we need to spread more awareness on a larger organizational scale. But actually, most of them are aware of the implementation, and they're confident that, yes, using such system will enhance our productivity and will enhance the organizational efficiency. So that was an interesting result, because I think and what we're going for next is bridging the gap between employees and HR, let's say, personnel or managers themselves, how they implement system and how they listen to their employees while implementing such activities and systems.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's great. Yes, thank you, Manny, for the presentation.
Thank you.
So we move on to the fourth paper. I'm not sure if they would be presenting on book publishing.
And Doctor, I think that person is not here because he's sick. He's not available, Doctor.
Okay, that's fine. So we moving on to the fifth paper, which is on corporate financial planning.
Yes, sure, I will. It is my presentation.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. So welcome to having the fifth paper entitled Realigning of Priorities.
Yes,
Corporate financial planning, a perspective to be weighed considering the crisis like COVID-19 and post-COVID. And we've got our co-chair here presenting.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Can you see the presentation, Doctor? Can you see the presentation?
Yeah, it's showing fine. Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to present before Dr. Luisa. My topic is about realigning of priorities in corporate financial planning. And generally, when we talk about financial planning, we talk about resources utilization. Well, how effectively a company can utilize the available resources effectively, so the objectives could be easily achieved. So when we talk about corporate financial planning, we normally talk about how economically companies can procure money, well, how these money could be invested on various projects that could maximize the profits, that could give maximum return for us, and how effectively a company could manage their working capital requirements. So this is how companies normally tend to devote plans. They tend to devote money for their activities. So they think about effective utilization of funds, and they think about economical way of getting required amount of money and administering those funds to meet out their requirements. So in general, we emphasize on these three major areas. But now we companies are undergoing stress because revenues are getting stretched, and customers' demand is falling rapidly. Jobs are getting cut, and people are having problems in getting jobs, employment. So the revenue model is completely shattered because of the COVID situation, or because of scarcity, or because of crisis that companies undergo now. So in those areas, companies will have, in those situation scenarios, companies must think about realigning their priorities. And then they should not be carrying out with the activities as they used to do before. Because before they had a proper revenue model, and they had some estimations, and they had some kind of revenue to support their activities. But now things are completely getting upside down. So we must think about realigning our priorities so that the objectives what we think about could be achieved at least to some extent possible, right? So companies now must think about how effectively we can use the existing available resources. So our objectives is not completely compromised, right? So objectives are there, but we must focus on achieving those objectives as well. So we are stressing that why this realignment is required, because now people have resources, they're very much limited in nature, not like before, because we had options before, and we thought about we had some kind of other avenues, options to explore, but now resources are getting limited because of because of economic problems the countries are facing. So resources are getting limited, and companies need to focus. They must focus on the avenues that are really giving us profits, because they should not be investing money on all kinds of projects and which are expected to be generating revenues. But now the companies will have to identify that on what area, on what project organizations must go on investing, on what areas we have to think twice before investing, because we are having crisis, we're having financial limitations, we're having limited resources. So companies will have to concentrate on avenues that are really going to give us benefits. So that's very much essential. And despite of crisis, companies should always invest money on success factors, key success factors, which are really strengthening their abilities, which are really improving their competences, which are really giving them some competitive advantage. So because of these reasons, we are recommending companies will have to go for realigning their priorities. They should think about their plans, and they should realign their priorities so that objectives, whatever we had in our mind, of course, before crisis, what we made could possibly be achieved. Right, so now when we talk about financial planning process, it goes this way. Normally, companies determine their objectives and goals, and they make a long-term plan, and accordingly they develop budgets, and they keep controlling, they keep they keep getting feedback on achievement of those targets. This is generally organizations pursue to achieve their goals and objectives. Now, we're not modifying, of course, this one, and organizations may have to revise their objectives, and they may have to, of course, restate whatever that we had planned to achieve before, but could be slightly modified according to your priorities, according to your importance, according to the one which is very much essential for us, and one which is not that much essential for us. And that should be carefully evaluated by them, and accordingly they can go for, of course, using the resources. So we identified that there are three different priorities. You must say that one which is very much essential, you must go for it, because that is really strengthening our key success factor. That's going to maximize our competencies, that's going to give us some competitive edge. On those factors, we don't have to compromise on investments. So companies should go for investing money on that. We call it is a critical priority. That's, that is very much required to keep running, to keep your business running. That's very much needed. And we also see that something is really going to enhance our performance. For example, employees training. Now we are moving ahead. We are moving, we are employing technologies now to run our businesses. So we must be investing money on those areas so people get used to using such technologies, and they keep running. They keep, of course, making businesses. So that's, we say, important priority. In addition to that, if something really we can do further investments, we do have resources, then we can think about something that we would like to have it as additional, something desirable. Of course, it can be there, really good for us. If it's not there, of course, companies can move on, of course, investing resources on those two important priorities. So companies will have to identify which is more important for us, which is going to enhance our performance in our company. So that could be given more importance. So organizations will have to identify those priorities well before going for investing resources. But normally when we have crisis, when we are having financial crisis, usually organizations face problems like they have problems with generating adequate amount of cash, revenue getting shattered, people take too much of time to pay their loans, and we're not able to collect money from receivables. Customers are taking a lot of time to repay money, and our suppliers are asking for so much amount of money. So our supply chain, of course, is getting a little bit of getting negatively affected, and that might give us huge cash crunch. Cash crisis will be there. Sales is drastically getting reduced due to income level of people. The demand level is getting shattered, so revenue goes down. And companies are thinking about borrowing funds, because that's the only source of money that they can think of now, because revenue is not supporting us. Internally generated money is not there. So they should think about borrowing only. But when they go for borrowing, and they may have to end up paying huge amount of interest rates. So that could also be one possible additional liability companies may have to look up, may have to take it up during crisis time. And companies also have limited access to capital market authorities, but you might have seen in last 1.5 years, not many IPOs are coming up. Capital market is getting sluggish, condition because of, COVID situation, because of crisis. Markets are slowly only moving up. It is not giving a big scope for investors to go for investing money on IPOs or share market securities. So companies will have limited access to those securities. And long-term investments or companies will take time to decide, because these investments are going to be profitable or it's going to be unprofitable. They must have to evaluate carefully, because crisis, how it is going to be ending, Well, how long it's going to prevail, companies have no idea about it. So they must be carefully, making their investment decisions. So these are the common problems usually organizations face during crisis. Now, what companies will have to do, of course, here we thought about when we go for some, companies are having financial, plans. They make decisions with regard to mobilizing money. They make, they decide where to invest money. So we are recommending some possible alignment in that. So normally we say when you want to maximize your production, when you want to maximize your capacity, and we say, okay, go for it. You take a bank loan and go for it. But now companies, we are trying to minimize the liability. We say, okay, if you can enhance your productivity, improve your production using your own resources without borrowing, without having a bank loan, without going for additional liability, if you can do so, then companies are advised to go for that. So there has to be some alignment required with regard to funding part of it. Yeah, so we can say usually companies are advised to go for bank loans. Debts are normally preferred by them, but now during crisis we advise organizations not to go for that much of liability. But if you can meet out your objectives using bootstrapping technique, using your existing resources, that would be much better. So we have to reduce our borrowing, and in case if you can replace your existing loans with cheaper rates of, cheaper loans, and that's also advisable. So companies now think about some kind of swapping techniques, so they can realign, they can swap the existing loans that carry higher rates of interest with lower rates of interest. So that could be possible. They must go for it. And when they go for declaring dividends, because now organizations are in need of resources, companies are in need of money. So instead of declaring dividends now, that could be postponed. So we say that companies normally follow free dividend policies. When they have huge amount of profits, they go for declaring higher rates of dividends to investors. But now there could be some alignment in that we must think of using our profits for our future expansion purposes. We can retain it for our own development purposes. So free dividend rates could be slightly delayed, could be postponed to sometimes that could be done. So that's with regard to financing options, there has to be some kind of alignment like this. And when we come to investment part of it, again, we are saying investments are definitely required because to enhance your revenue, to maximize your profits, and to give maximum wealth to shareholders, investments are very much required. But now companies will have to think about, in case after making investments, if things are really profitable, if things are really not moving the way as we thought before, if that's going to be there, well, what are the possible avenues we have? Are we going to sell those machines? Are we going to keep it for other purposes? Are we going to use it in some other manufacturing capacity? So they should think about other perspectives as well. And resale value should be carefully examined. So now we say before making investments, organizations should think about the resale value of those machines, because in case of any issue, in case of any problem, if companies they won't be able to make use of those resources, the next option would be selling them off. But when you're going to sell them off, how are we going to manage the loss that you're going to get in case companies are not able to get the required amount of money? They're going to end up with huge losses. Well, how are we going to account for? Well, how this loss is going to make an impact on shareholders' wealth? So that should be carefully examined. So NPV, normally NPV is the criteria for investments, net present value. And if companies can go for using some other techniques which are more advanced than, like they can go for expected net present value. They can go for adopting inflation rates as well in net present value. So those kind of techniques possibly would be used by organizations to identify the most feasible, profitable projects. So that could be the investment alignment required. And with regard to, of course, meeting your working capital requirements, they need to have proper control on receivables. They should have a control on, of course, movement of inventories, and there should be cash flow. The companies will have to ensure that we don't end up with cash crisis, so we are not having money to run our business. So that situation should not be happening. Organizations will have to carefully plan out their working capital needs, and that should be well utilized, so there will not be any crisis in meeting the day-to-day requirements. So with regard to administration. Now, we say organizations will have to think about redefining their profit maximization objective. Now, profit, of course, is going to happen when markets are going to be favorable for us. So we may have to redefine our equation. Now, the focus has to be minimizing costs. The focus must be, we should try our level best to improve our efficiencies internally we can try our operations, whatever we can do internally, so that the efficiency could be achieved, and that could possibly give us profits. Now we don't depend on market. Now we're not depending on market forces, because market is not really favorable for us. So organizations now will have to think about rewriting the definition, and they should concentrate on minimizing costs, so profit could be very well maximized. Okay.
2 minutes.
Okay, I'm done, Doctor. So that's the findings now. So companies will have to go for risk analysis in detail, and good planning would really help them a lot. Financing aspect must be carefully examined before they make a decision, and crisis should be well planned. I mean, how are we going to manage your resources during crisis? That should be well taken care of. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Ranger, for the
Thank you,
presentation. I got a question regarding the management of crisis. So I was wondering if there's anything to learn from the previous financial crisis that we had in 2008 that you have applied to this crisis in 20.
Yeah, definitely yes, Doctor, because crisis is definitely teaching us a lot, because previous financial crisis could be stock market crisis, because people depended extensively on financial engineering aspects. In financial engineering, they depended on that. The forecasting they applied, and the profit they estimated, that all went wrong. So possibly we might have to go for using appropriate techniques in estimation. So engineering is very much required. At the same time, we have to ensure that these engineering models are not creating trouble on our basic fundamental performance. So that should be taken care of, well taken care of.
So yes, no, that was very helpful. And in terms of the alignment that you're proposing, are you proposing the alignment with the corporate objectives with internal functional alignment processes? Is that what you're intending? Okay, that's fine.
Yes, Doctor. Yes, Doctor. That is yeah.
And just,
yes, Doctor.
And someone
Doctor.
has shared a link. Dr. Sherimon has shared a link there.
Yeah.
Is that your? Oh, it's a feedback form.
No, that's feedback question.
Okay, fantastic. So if participants could fill in that, that would be appreciated. Thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much.
We move on to the 6th paper in the session. So it's about psychological contract.
Yes, sir.
And I believe it's presented by Syed. Oops, sorry, not my timer going. Syed Sadulat Hussaini. Who is there?
And Doctor, before they can start, can you please spend a few minutes after the presentation to fill up the questionnaire, please? We have a forms given on the link. I mean, on chat box, there's a link. Please fill it out if you have time. After presentation, yes, please go ahead. Yes, Syed.
Yeah. So that's great. Thank you so much. So, do you want them to fill it now, or they can fill it now?
They can do it. They can do it later.
Okay.
They can do later.
Okay, that's fine. So we welcome our 6th paper presenter.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
A study on employee psychological contract of ITES industry in Chennai, India.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The floor is yours. Thank you.
I'm trying to share my screen. I'm not getting the.
Oh yes, bring it on.
Just click share screen, Syed.
Yeah, I have clicked.
Share screen, yeah. Click share screen. No, you need to open the presentation first. First, open the presentation.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, open the presentation and minimize it, and then click share screen.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Ranga. Okay, this is my presentation.
Yeah, just click on that now. Yes, that's it.
Can you see my presentation now?
Yeah.
Okay, very good afternoon to everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank the conference organizers and session chairs for giving me this wonderful platform and opportunity to share and to present my research work. The topic of my today's research paper is a study of employees' psychological contract in IT industry of Chennai. For your information, this research paper is a part of my PhD thesis, which I will be submitting to the University of Madras very soon. In my PhD research, I have measured the psychological contract in different ways, but in this paper, I have just presented the findings of psychological contracts of employees who are working in IT industry. And let me take this opportunity to introduce Dr. Tamim. He is my PhD supervisor, and he's working as a professor in the Department of Commerce, the New College, University of Madras. And well, I have designed my presentation in these 9 parts, and I will try my level best to discuss briefly about all of them, okay, within the time limit given to me. So what is employees' psychological contract? Employees' psychological contract is all about the perception of employees regarding the fulfillment of their obligations and promises made by their employers. Psychological contracts are different from the employment contract or job contract. Employees will be forming the psychological contract after learning about the organization and after understanding the organizational policies and practices, and also after understanding the organizational culture and climate. Employees also will form psychological contract after learning about their employer's nature, behavior, and attitude. It's not necessary that always employees will be forming psychological contract. Even employers also can have a psychological contract about the employees. But for our study, we have just measured the psychological contract of employees who are working in IT industry. So this psychological contract can be strong or weak, and it can be positive or negative, or it can be healthy or unhealthy. And it is very important for the organizations to have a positive psychological contract of employees and a stronger psychological contract of employees. When the employees are having the stronger psychological contract, certainly they will be having the positive perception and the feeling about the job and about the organization, okay, in which they are employed or in which they are working. So if the employees are having the positive feeling about the job, certainly they will say that I like my job and I love my organization. Such an employee will try to put all his best effort for the organization, and he will stay in the organization for a longer period of time. As all of us know, that globalization is creating a hyper-competitive environment. If you take the example of IT industry in Chennai, there are more than 7,000 national and multinational IT companies are operating in Chennai IT industry, in Chennai city itself. So the skilled and talented employees, they are having numerous employment opportunities because of the hyper-competitive environment which is existing in the industry. And the current generation employees are different from the previous one. And they don't keep any long-term plan with any one plan of employment with any one specific organization, but rather they give value and importance to gaining the experience of different types in different organization. And they like to stay with the organization which is satisfying not only their personal, but also as well as their professional needs. So the current generation employees, as I said before, they are different from previous one. This is the reason it is very important for an organization. They have to make sure that their employees are having the positive and a stronger psychological contract. If the employees, the current generation employees, if they feel and if they have any minor discomfort or inconvenience with the organization in which they are working, immediately they will make a plan and they will move to another organization. So this job hopping mindset of employees is really creating a lot of challenges for the organization, particularly in IT industry. This is what I'm studying in my PhD thesis. So this has created lots of labor turnover problem and employees retention problem. And from the literature, we have found that there is a positive correlation between the employee's psychological contract and the employee's performance. And positive correlation has been found between the employee's psychological contract and the employee's productivity and motivation, and also as well as employee's retention. And many previous researchers have acknowledged that if the company who has become successful in gaining and in achieving the positive psychological contract of employees, they have also become successful in gaining the better employees performance and achieving the better employees motivation, productivity, and also as well as better employees retention. And contrary to this, the companies who have become unsuccessful in gaining the positive psychological contract, they were having lots of retention and labor turnover problems in their organizations. regarding the significance of the study, we feel that there are many researchers have made a theoretical and empirical contribution towards the study of psychological contract, but employee psychological contract in IT industry was not given much attention and focus. To fill this gap in the literature or research, so we have taken up this research, and we believe that the finding of this research will certainly help the managers of IT company to understand the psychological contract of their employees, and so that they will be able to design right policies and strategies to gain and to achieve the higher or stronger or healthier psychological contract of their employees. The objective of our study is very clear. So the main purpose of this study is to investigate the psychological contract of the employees who are working in IT industry of India in Chennai city. And as all of us know, the hypotheses are the predictive statement about the possible outcome of the research. And we have one main hypothesis here, and there are 5 alternative hypotheses we have developed, and we have measured all of them. And unfortunately, in all these hypotheses have been rejected except H05. This is the only hypothesis in which we have not found any relationship between the age of the employees and psychological contract. So rest of hypothesis 01, 02, 03, and 4, these are all rejected, and we have the result is accepting the H05. So the research methodology, the research approach is the quantitative approach. Actually, the data what we have collected is a qualitative one, in which we have taken the employees' perception and their feeling and ideas about the topic. But later on, this data we have converted into the quantitative one by using various statistical tools. We have collected both the primary data and secondary data, and particularly the questionnaire has been used with the Likert 5-point Likert scales, which ranges from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And respondents are the employees of IT companies who are working in IT companies, and the area of study is Chennai. Chennai is located in the southern part of India. It's one of the major metropolitan city of southern India, and the population is unknown. The reason is there are more than 7,000 national and multinational companies are operating in Chennai, and out of these, most of the companies are so large and so big. Let's say, for example, Tata. In one campus of Tata, there are more than 50,000. So we could not correctly figure out what is the real, population in the whole, area of the study. So actually, these are all the variables we have used to measure the psychological contract of employees who are working in IT industry. And I'm not having actually the time because of the paucity of time. I recommend all of you people to refer to my research paper to have a better understanding of the variable which I have used to measure the psychological contract. So I have to move to because I have a lot of other information to discuss. So pilot testing, we have conducted the pilot testing to see the validity of the questionnaire, and we have collected data from the 40 respondents who are the employees of IT company, and the collected data has been processed through SPSS software, and we have got the alpha Korumba value of 0.714, which we feel is acceptable. And convenient sampling method have been used. The reason is the population is infinite and unknown, which is basically the method of non-probability sampling. And we have collected data from 27 prominent IT companies who have been listed in the NASSCOM list of IT companies of India. And our total sample size was 505 people. We have collected data from 505 respondents. And we have out of these 505 respondents, okay, 260 respondents were from IT companies and software companies, and 245 respondents from BPOs and IT companies. Okay, and out of these 505 respondents, 232 respondents were selected from MNCs, and 273 respondents were selected from Indian IT companies. We had some limitation and we faced some problem during our research. First of all, there was a scarcity of time, and meeting with the top level executives of the company was very difficult, and particularly collecting information from the supervisors and managers was really challenging for us. And the result of the study is limited to the responses of the respondents, which we feel that which may subject to change, okay, after some time if we do the study maybe later. from the analysis of data, we have found many things. We have understood that employees' psychological contract in IT industry is just above the average level. As you can see, the mean score of 33.83, which is falling in between the agree and neutral in this Likert scale. So this is what we have found from our analysis of data, what we have collected. And then we have also measured the psychological contract of employees based on the gender of employees, and in which we found that women employees who are working in IT industry of Chennai, they are having the stronger and healthier psychological contract compared to their men counterpart. So we have also measured the psychological contract of employees based on the type of company, such as IT, which is software companies, and also ITE companies, and in which we found that those who are working, any employees who are working in IT companies, they are having the stronger and they are having the healthier psychological contract. And also we have measured the psychological contract of employees based on the origin of the company, like national, any Indian IT companies and multinational IT companies. And from this analysis, we found that employees, those who are working in multinational IT companies, they are having the stronger psychological contract compared to those people who are working for Indian IT companies. And also we have measured the psychological contract of employees based on their salaries, and in which we found that employees, those who are having the higher salary package, those who are drawing higher salary from the companies, they are having the better and healthier and stronger psychological contract compared to their other colleagues, those who are having less salary. So we can say that even higher salary also can have influence on the psychological contract of employees. And lastly, employees' age. We have also measured the psychological contract of employees based on the age, and in which we found that the age of the employee is not having any influence on the psychological contract. So very little minor correlation has been found between the age and age of the respondents and the psychological contract. So we had to reject the hypothesis 05.
Okay, 3-minute warning.
So I'm concluding. Thank you so much. So we have some suggestions. We are having some recommendation for the managers of IT company. So we recommend that the psychological contract is very essential, and it is very important for the organization that they have to make sure that their employees are having positive psychological contract. And how to gain this positive psychological contract? Okay. First of all, it's very important for the management of the organization that they have to make sure that they're having the transparency in all their activities, in all their dealings. And apart from this, the managers and the owners of the organization, they have to make sure that they have fulfilled all their obligations and promises towards the employees, whatever they have made to their employees. And apart from this, respecting the contribution of individual employee is what is very, very important. Sometimes employees will be having a dissatisfaction. Why? Because they feel that I have contributed more, but I have not been properly recognized by my organization. So respecting the contribution made by the employers and rewarding them accurately, and recognizing their performance and recognizing their contribution is what is very essential and important to gain a stronger psychological contract. And apart from this, there are certain things which we recommend that organization should avoid and should eliminate to gain the positive and stronger psychological contract, in which unrealistic target, undefined roles and responsibilities, these things are very important, that should not be there in the organizations. And apart from this, okay, discrimination based on the religion, based on the language what the people speak, and based on their background, these things should be avoided in the organization, because this will be having a larger influence on the psychological contract of employees. And it is very important responsibility of particularly the top level management, and also as well as the managers. They have to have a very cordial relationship with their employees, and they should develop a very friendly relationship with their employees. They should not make them feel that he is the boss, I am the boss, and I have the authority over them. So such kind of things should be avoided. So when we were having a meeting with the employees of the IT companies, we have realized from our personal observation, we have realized that employees are facing the problem of stressful job and unrealistic target, deadlines and goals. and undefined roles and responsibilities. These things were troubling the employees in the organization. So here our suggestion to the management of the organization is they have to make sure that, okay, they are developing the conducive working environment for their employees, because organization is a place where employees will be spending a major portion of the day. So they have to make sure that employees are feeling very comfortable in the place of work, so that they will be having better performance, better productivity, and they will be able to contribute more for the organization. So these are all our general suggestion for the managers of IT companies. And with these few words, we would like to, I would like to conclude my presentation. And I would like to thank you again for the conference organizer and session chairs and all my audience for listening my presentation. Thank you, and all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sai.
So very interesting presentation. Really enjoyed that, listening to your different findings as well. I just wonder if the pandemic has changed, you think, some of these or exacerbated some of these findings, because I could imagine that you have collected your data prior to the pandemic, or was it during the pandemic?
Actually, I have started my my PhD research in the year 2015. Actually, this data was collected mostly in the year 2018 and 19. After that, I started writing my thesis. So I'm going to submit my thesis in the month of May to the University of Madras. So I feel that because in IT industry, if you talk about IT industry of Chennai, this pandemic has not affected much, particularly to those people who are in the technical side. Their jobs are fine, they are doing fine, and they are working from home. So employment is not employment aspect of the organization has not created any problem, particularly in IT industry, because of the pandemic, because they have asked their people to work from home, and now these days people are working from home.
Just wondering in terms of the comparison before and after. I mean, I don't know whether it's the focus of your thesis or it's in general findings, but
this is also this is also a very good opportunity for us. Even we can have one more research, okay, before pandemic and after pandemic, so that we will be able to understand, okay, what is the current situation existing in IT industry. So, but the data what I have collected, it was collected before the pandemic.
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's great. Thank you so much. There's good insights in there. Thank you. We move on to the next paper, just keeping an eye on time. Because the 7th paper is on empirical review of COVID-19 pandemic effects on the corporate social responsibility in Oman, challenges and opportunities. Have we got a presenter for paper 7, please? Thank you, Saeed.
Yes.
Yeah. So is it Afshan Yunus?
Yes.
Good. Okay, so we welcome the presenter. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for providing me opportunity to present in the conference. Let me share my screen. So kindly confirm that you are able to see my presentation. Are you able to see it? Kindly confirm.
Yeah. If you put in presentation mode, that's great. Thank you.
It's fine?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. And first of all, good afternoon to everyone. And many thanks for accepting our chapter in the International Conference on Co-Creating the Post-COVID-19 World, Exploring Sustainable Paths. My name is Afshan Yunus, and I'm the faculty member of Arab Open University. And with my co-authors, Professor Azza Azlina, she is my supervisor, and she's working in Zamin Malaysia University. My co-supervisor is Professor Abdul Bashar, and he's also working in UNICEF Malaysia. So the topic which I have chosen, it is about review of COVID-19 pandemic effects on the corporate social responsibility, particularly in Oman. So challenges and opportunities I'm going to highlight in this book chapter. The presentation content includes first the introduction, the background of the study, then move to worldwide CSR COVID-19 practices Either it is considered as opportunity or threat, and similarly, then I will move to in context of Oman, then the limitation of this book chapter, and finally conclusion. I hope so I can present this within 15 minutes. Okay. If we talk about the coronavirus, which is regarded as a COVID-19, it was started in China in December 2019, and within a 1 month, it has spread all over the world. And as a result, many countries has imposed different types of restriction, closure of businesses, closure of airports, and as a result, many businesses has to shut down. Not only limited to this, but there is on the whole shrinkage of GDP by 3% in all over the world, which is identified and communicated by the IMF. It is for the first 6 months only for 2020. The influence of COVID-19 are exceptional after the Great Depression in 1930s. Some of the impacts are very immediate, as we can see lockdown, restrictions, social distancing, but some impacts will continue in the future, which will impact the business, their strategy, their structure, even the economy. Even we call it a new normal world. We don't know when the new normal will come into existence. Then there is no definite limit when this pandemic is over, because we receive continuously different information from WHO and we believe on their information. Now, the main thing, what, how this COVID-19 challenge to the business. Business is facing two major challenges. The first is related with its sustainability. So they want to live for longer time, because as I mentioned in the beginning, that some businesses has already closed down, specifically medium and small. But even there are many examples in the world which are also closed down. So the main concern of the businesses due to COVID-19 is the sustainability. And at the same time, the second concern is creating positive image of businesses in the eyes of their stakeholders. So what is the opportunity with all this scenario? CSR is identified by many researchers in 2020 as a business opportunity and as a sustainable tool, because CSR is considered as a sustainable tool. So if the businesses focus more on CSR, that means they can sustain in the future. According to Stahl 2020, he identified 7 areas of research on CSR. This identification actually done by the researcher after COVID-19. So the first area, he identified employee CSR. The second area refers to bridging the gap between the micro and macro levels. The third refers to CSR measures, that how it impacts on different types of the stakeholders. The fourth, which I use in this chapter, is to see the influence of CSR programs in reaction to COVID-19. The fifth area is about resistance of employees in the indicators which indicate that why employee resisted to apply CSR or to follow CSR. The sixth area is about collaboration between the private and public sector. And the last and seventh area focus on vulnerable populations. So as I mentioned, this chapter will be focused on the fourth area, which is also suggested by Angus. Background of social responsibility. Actually, the concept of corporate social responsibility was introduced by Bowen in 1953. Later on in American economy, due to different depression, due to different demand, the concept was extended by Davis in 1960. And in 1980, a proper and a complete definition of CSR has been introduced and suggested. Whereas the new themes have been added in 1990s, like the CSR is related with the performance of the company, it is related with the stakeholder theory, then other concerns about business ethics. In 2000, the scope of corporate social responsibility become more widened, and then the contingency theory, sustainability also added in that scope. So now CSR is used as sustainable business tool, which is recommended by many researchers, and many companies, the businesses are practicing this. As we find out the development of the CR stages, it is divided into 4 stages. So before 1950s, which is called era of philanthropic era. And that time, the most issue, the focus was on giving charities to the organizations and without any business actions. So that was the era, which is called philanthropic era. The second era, which started from 1953 to 1963 and 67, it is recognized as awareness era. So the recognition of CSR has been increased. Now it is added in the business's plan slowly and gradually at that time. From 1968 to 1973, it was regarded issue era. Now businesses focus on the issues of the society, like pollution, poverty, urban-rural distribution. And finally, from 1974 to 1978 and continue till now, it is recorded as a responsiveness era, which means that all the businesses, all the companies are responsible for their society. So they are responsible for the society. If the society needs them, they have to perform their actions. CSR and profitability. As we discussed from the beginning, CSR has been associated with the performance. So there is a strong relationship between CSR and profitability. If any business will increase the activities of CSR, it definitely reflects in the profitability of the organization. As we have the model of American economy, when the consumers prefer to purchase from those companies which are performing more in CSR. So there is a positive association between CSR and profitability. Worldwide CSR initiatives after COVID-19. So once the COVID-19 started, there are different challenges which faced by not only the people, the general public, but also at the government level, at organizations level. And at the same time, the CSR expectations increases by all the stakeholders from the businesses. The negative aspects, if we can say, that retailers are involved in profiteering. Even up till now, there are some price hikes reported in some countries, in some areas. So it increases the responsibility of the government sector to watchdog the market and control all types of the price hikes. Then many companies also resisted about unethical practices, and they actively participate in CSR activities. So those companies who have actively participated in CSR activities, or we can call it a COVID CSR activities, they are considered as a market champions and shining star. Even if no one is able to realize, then in the future, everyone will remember, like what happened in the American economy in 1960s and 1970s. There are few examples of famed businesses CSR activities in response to COVID-19, like Ford and General Motors. They have started immediately partnership with ventilator makers. Then Prada, Gucci, Zara, St. Laurent, they have shifted their manufacturing to masks. Then Starbucks, they have provided a free mental wellness therapy for their employees. Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they have paid full amount of the wages and the salaries to their employees even without the work. Google has also spent their efforts to support small and medium organizations for their survival. Similarly, Alibaba, which is a very famous example, Jack Ma has donated millions worth of testing kits, medical equipment, and free face masks to many countries, specifically developing countries. Many fast food restaurants, specifically McDonald's, they have shared their secret recipes on social media during the quarantine time, just to provide as a part of CSR activities to the customers. Challenges Yes, as we identified, as I mentioned, closure of small to medium businesses. This is the biggest challenge. Not only this, travel industry and tourism industry has been suffered badly even up till now. There is significant increase in global unemployment rate. Also, this is considered as a deepest recession after the Second World War. Now, it's not only impacted the world, but also Oman also witnessed the positive and negative impacts. Okay, let me talk about the COVID CSR in context of Oman.
Okay, 2 minutes to wrap up, please.
Okay, I will try to wind up. Thank you. CSR is one of the important principles of corporate governance in Oman. So all the companies has to disclose their CSR information. And in Oman, the first 2 cases was reported on 24th of February 2020, and within a period of 1 month, it reaches to 131. Now, what are the different practices? First of all, His Majesty has ordered for the formation and establishment of Supreme Committee. And now this Supreme Committee is responsible to issue different directives and tackle and control the COVID-19 impacts. The first initiative as a CSR, which companies, businesses has provided to their employees is work from home. So we can call it as an employee CSR. There are other practices like Orido Oman, very famous company which offer free internet and agreement with Ministry of Education to provide students access of their education. Bank Dhofar, they have also authorized 1 million CSR donation. Oman LG, it also offers 6 million support to COVID-19 efforts. Bank Muscat, they deferred different loan payments. Oman Shell has almost contributed and donated 1 million riyal in terms of fuel and different medical kits. And National Bank of Oman also support the private banks for the deferred payments. It is not limited to only these activities. There are many other activities like personal contribution of His Majesty. Then the capital market also urge all the insurance company to cover the treatment of COVID-19. Grocery stores have extended their times. Free home delivery is offered to many customers specifically during the time of lockdown. Free messages, awareness messages, safety kits, and many social media campaigns. Many campaigns are run by different companies as a part of their CSR activities. Challenges, Oman also witnessed negative. First of all, the small and medium companies suffered badly. Second, hike prices. The hike prices were reported around only within 12 days of April 2020, 2,000 complaints received by Public Authority for Consumer Protection. And by June 2020, 50,000 complaints received. Another adverse effect is unemployment. And due to which 10% of population in Oman has been decreased. Limitations, actually this chapter has some limitation. First, pandemic is not yet over. If we will conduct a research, we will find the data, maybe the picture will change. It represents only the picture for the first 6 months or up to the August 2020. Then still, according to WHO, need to reshape CSR activities according to current situation. And this chapter only covers the data of famed businesses. Even the small companies, individuals, these are not covered. Just to conclude my full chapter, if we see the situation and if we see the model of the American economy, we can say here that CSR is an opportunity if identified and utilized rightly. So we call it COVID CSR. COVID CSR is opportunity for the businesses because with the help of COVID-19 CSR, they can keep their sustainability. They can move it, they can secure their future. And CSR is a challenge if the business will focus on temporary and short-term profits. Because to conclude this, we have the model of American economy, which they face a depression in 1960s and 1970s, and the consumers only supported those companies which were better in their CSR performance. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonder if there are any questions from the audience. No questions in the chat just yet.
No questions.
So, very interesting research. Thank you so much for your presentation. I was just wondering, in terms of the examples that you gave for the companies that you provided there, they all seem big companies with a lot of resources, like Ford, Prada, Starbucks, Google. Have you found any particular small medium enterprises examples of, or is it mainly restricted to large organizations?
No, I just try to find out the world famous organizations. And the same approach I applied here in Oman, the most famous organizations. Particularly in Oman, I have chosen the listed companies. And in the world, if you can see all the famous and known organizations.
Yeah, that's fine. So you're just wondering, so in terms of crisis, maybe the ones with better resources or managerial support, could afford sort of CSR. It's just in the back of my mind whether there could be a difference there because of size and resource
And
availability.
this is the main limitation of this study.
Okay, thank you so much.
Welcome.
That was great.
So there is one question from one audience, Dr. Manahil Lodi.
Can you
She
see?
writes, yeah, she was trying to ask some question, I believe. She was raising her hand.
Okay, so could you please unmute yourself if you want to ask a question?
What is the question? She did not type on the chat box, but she raised her hand. Manahil, Dr. Manahil? No, she's not the member. Okay, we can move on.
Okay, and thank you so much for that presentation. We move on to our final paper in the session, which is on sustainable business-to-business marketing during a pandemic crisis, an overview of sustainable solutions and marketing practices. Is it Shrashat Yakting presenting?
She there? Sharshad, Dr. Sharshad?
Is the presenter for the 8th paper in the
Yeah,
session?
I think she's not here, but she's not here.
Oh, okay, right. Oh, well, so that takes us to the end of the session then. Thank you so much for your participation. I really enjoyed the variety of the presentations and providing a link to the pandemic, as well as the different important aspects of CSR, HRM, performance. I think I really it has broadened my view in terms of the different types of consequences of the pandemic on these areas, sports as well. So thank you so much for your valuable research. Also, just to remind you, as yes, so the form is on the chat. So please take some time to fill it in.
Yes.
There is another one. After the session, we go back to the main panel. Okay, that's fine. Yes. So there's a reminder. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the session, and obviously during the conference, organizers will be providing the booklet with the papers, so you can have a wider, in-depth read on those. Sure. Thank you so much as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you, Doctor.
Take care. See you soon.
See you. See you.
All the best. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.